Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope you're having a lovely day. Today I'd like to follow up on the video that I did yesterday on what these 3D printer laws that are very restrictive are and why they're bad, that are popping up all over the country as a primer for people who don't really understand them. And today's video is going to be on why they're popping up and who's responsible and accountable for it. And I'm hoping that once I show you who is responsible and accountable for it, that it'll be a little bit more motivating and exciting and incentivizing for you to get up and call your congressperson, call your legislator, call your state representative, and let them know that you want to push back against this. It's very important that you understand that you're not going up against the grassroots movement. You're going up against one individual, in my opinion, that is responsible for 99% of this, that is a control freak and likes to stick his dick where it doesn't belong. So for those of you who haven't seen my previous video, I will give you the TLDR. If you have seen it, please do fast forward to the timestamp down below because this is just going to be me repeating what you've seen in yesterday's video. The laws that I'm talking about are these laws in New York State. No person, firm, partnership, association, or corporation shall sell or deliver any three-dimensional printer in the state of New York unless such printer is equipped with blocking technology that is going to be able to tell if you're printing a firearm or a firearm part. And the definition of 3D printer is so wide: any machine capable of rendering a three-dimensional object from a digital design file using additive or subtractive manufacturing. This means that dental devices, construction devices, food devices, jewelry devices, all different types of CNC mills are going to be covered under this, and they would have to have this spyware installed. This is fundamentally based on a false premise because every single 3D printed firearm tied to a killing has been a hybrid, a plastic frame bolted to metal barrels and slides that are bought online. These are not fully 3D printed firearms. In order for a gun to actually consistently shoot well, you have to have all these different metal parts that they are put to. Even the gun that was used to shoot the United Healthcare CEO, allegedly, is a gun that had, I believe, hockey tape and a bunch of other metal parts that were purchased online from gun parts vendors that were then put together in Frankenstein with a couple of 3D printed pieces. The reason that this is very important is if we're talking about 3D printing individual pieces for a gun and not the actual gun itself, well, now we're talking about printing individual parts for a gun that you have to detect. And when you take a look at what individual parts for a gun look like, you come up with this problem over here. This is a piece for a Glock, and this is a camera flash mount for a Nikon or a Canon or a Sony camera. This is a suppressor, otherwise known as a silencer in the movies, the thing that makes the gun make less noise, and this is the barrel of a flashlight. This is the bottom of an AR-15 receiver, and this is a Raspberry Pi computer case. This is a MagBolt pistol grip, and this is the grip to a cordless drill. This is a Glock 17 pistol, and this is a Honeywell barcode scanner that you would see for scanning prices at Walmart or H-E-B. So, and if you are going to try and create something that can actually detect all these things, you're going to end up with a bunch of false positives. And one great way to get around this would be to just print things like this and just add this shit to it. Once you take this and you add this shit to it, it is a completely different thing altogether, and it is going to be completely indistinguishable, and the user can simply just flick this thing off or just remove it with a razor or something once it is done. This bill is either going to A, do nothing, or B, even worse, it's going to do a lot of damage and keep you from being able to print a lot of normal things because it's going to constantly be flagging shit that it should not be flagging. Above all, the reason this bill is horrible is you have to think about what blocking technology is. Blocking technology means it's going to stop me from doing something. The 3D printing ecosystem is fundamentally created with open source software. Open source software is software that I can see the code to. And if I can see the code to it, I can edit it and add features or remove features at will. This is great because it keeps companies from being able to make their printers shittier over time. An example of this is when HP sent out a firmware update that made it so that their scanner, printer, faxer would not allow you to use the scanner if you did not have ink. And by the way, this is a printer where you also had to buy HP's ink. The only reason they're able to get away with this type of ridiculous shit and hold you hostage is because you don't have access to the code. You can't edit it yourself. That's why you have printers that can tell you can only use it with their expensive ink. With 3D printing, that's not really possible in the same way because if a manufacturer were to issue such a firmware update, a programmer would simply remove that piece from the code and share it with everybody, and there you go. In order to have this type of ecosystem, you would have to have a closed source ecosystem. And a closed source ecosystem is what allows companies like Future Home to say, I know that you used to have this feature for free, but if you want to have this feature again, you now have to pay us $117 a year. It's how a company can take a baby monitor and turn it into a subscription. Open source software is the ultimate kryptonite to enshittification, and we should be happy when companies are making open source software. These laws would codify enshittification into the entire manufacturing supply chain and require all these devices have internet connections to work. It is just absolutely horrible from top to bottom. Now what I'd like to do is I want to go over who is behind all of this? And hopefully this will get some of you excited to start pushing back against it. The biggest misconception here is that any of this is about gun control. Gun control is saying, I'm not allowed to walk downtown carrying an AR-15. That's gun control. I can't walk around in public carrying a pistol, and I'm not allowed to do that in a crowded area. I can't go into a store while I'm carrying a Glock. That's gun control. Whether you disagree or agree with that, that is gun control. This is manufacturing control, saying that if I cannot print this with my manufacturing device unless it connects to the internet and the state's algorithm says it's okay. That has nothing to do with gun control. When I'm trying to print a camera flash mount and my printer is giving me an error because an algorithm thinks that it is a weapon or a firearm. Now, I'm going to make the case that the person who's behind all of this is a multi-billionaire that has a 2-decade-long career of having to have dictatorial top-down control of everything in his life. It is a demonstrated pattern, and I'm going to be going over that demonstrated pattern in this video. So I'm going to be reading as I go ahead because I have a lot of notes and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything or get it wrong. The new laws that put a firearm scanner inside your 3D printer are not a grassroots safety movement. They're the work of one billionaire's organization, Everytown for Gun Safety, founded and funded by Michael Bloomberg. And they fit a documented pattern of Michael Bloomberg dictating how everyone else should live and then spending money to enforce it. We've already talked about what the law is. What is Everytown for Gun Safety? Everytown launched on April 16, 2014 as a merger of the two existing Bloomberg world efforts. Mayors Against Illegal Guns, which Bloomberg co-founded, and Moms Demand Action, founded by Shannon Watts. Bloomberg took the title of chair and pledged to spend at least $50 million in the first year. This is an organization that claims they are a grassroots-run organization, and when you look at the funds behind it, no, it is not. This looks like it is funded mostly by one billionaire. Shannon Watts told the Washington Post that Bloomberg gave between a quarter and a third of Everytown's budget in recent years. She separately put his share at near 25% during the 2019 cycle. And I have provided documentation for just some of his multi-million-dollar donations down here. Named outlets call it Bloomberg's group. Times describes Everytown as Michael Bloomberg's gun control group. The Guardian and the Philadelphia Inquirer use the same framing, calling it Mike Bloomberg's gun control group. These are not news outlets that are known for being right-leaning, and they are pushing on him. Now, when you take a look at the article, they'll say that this is very big misclassification. Feinblatt, who is a policy advisor to Bloomberg, bristled at the media's focus on the former mayor's involvement after he announced the initiative. They already have 34,000 smaller donors, insisted Feinblatt, who rejects the top-down characterization of the group by its opponents. Let's take a look at the 990 and see if it supports that. When I take a look at the 990, I see membership dues at $0. Conferences and other income, $161,000. Gifts, grants is $55 million. So membership dues is $0, but gifts, grants, and other contributions is $55 million. You're not making your money off of conferences. You're not making your money by selling stuff. You're not making your money by people paying for memberships and fundraising events. No, you grassroots my ass. The reason this is important is because it's very important to ensure that the message that gets out there is not that putting spyware in every single part of the manufacturing chain in the United States, including 3D printers, is a popular idea among average Americans. It is a popular idea among one control freak billionaire who has enough money to make it seem like it is a popular idea when it is not. In 2016, the Bloomberg Family Foundation gave $5.2 million. In 2017, the Bloomberg Family Foundation gave $5 million. In 2020, he only gave $1.3 million. However, in 2019, one of the co-founders said that Mike Bloomberg funded about 25% of their contribution. That year, they brought in $84 million. This is not grassroots. How Everytown moved the bills. In New York, Everytown Policy Counsel Elizabeth Ryan testified to the Senate Finance and Assembly Ways and Means Committee on February 12, 2026, urging that printers block the execution of any file designed to make guns, core gun components, or illegal gun accessories. Once it passed, Everytown claimed the win publicly, releasing New York shuts down the plastic pipeline on May 21, 2026, quoting its president and Moms Demand Action. They use the same playbook in other states. In Colorado, Everytown representatives Allison Schuh and Greg Lickenbrock testified for HB 26-1144. In Washington, Everytown Senior Vice President Manisha Henley publicly took credit for ESHB 2320, the digital loophole file distribution ban. In California, Everytown publicly backed AB 2047 and celebrated its assembly passage. The blocking bills in New York, Washington, and California share identical defined terms, the same firearms blueprint detection algorithm, and the same STL, CAD, and geometric code clause appear in each text. They're not a direct copy and paste, but they're almost almost the same, and they all are being pushed for and lobbied for by the same organization that just so happens to always be there to testify in favor of every single one of these. Now I'd like to focus on Michael Bloomberg, my former mayor. Michael Bloomberg is a man, in my opinion, that is scared of everything and needs control over everything. Let's just talk about a couple of the programs that he put out. One of them was stop and frisk. Many of the police that I got to deal with, we did data recovery at my repair shop, so we very often had to deal with phones or hard drives or solid state drives that the district attorney would bring by. Sometimes he'd bring his cop friends with him, and I would talk to them and ask, what did you think of the stop and frisk thing? And they mostly hated it. The reason they hated it is because it put them in a position where they were forced by this bullshit system to constantly randomly harass people in the neighborhood that were not actually doing anything wrong. Now, I get it. I lived in Bed-Stuy for 15 years. I started living there in the mid-2000s. I lived in Bed-Stuy not when it was gentrified and you could get yourself a nice latte on the corner. I lived there back when if I held a cab on 30th Street and 7th Avenue and said where I was going, they locked their doors, raised their windows, and got the fuck out of there because they didn't want to go through a neighborhood where like you start walking in the wrong section and you get stabbed in the arm with a glass bottle. I lived in there when it was a very rough neighborhood. You don't solve crime by forcing the police through a quota system to go up to people who were literally doing nothing wrong because they have a quota and saying you have to fuck with them. That doesn't work. The cops that I spoke to despise this program because it actually made their relationship with the community worse. Instead of doing what they did before, which is I'm only going to fuck with the people that are clearly causing trouble, it forced them through a quota system to have to fuck with normal people from the neighborhood, which made the normal people from the neighborhood hate the police. And when the normal people from the neighborhood hate the police are then going to start hating the people from the neighborhood. It just all turns to absolute shit very quickly. The police that I spoke to, I can't say I speak for all the NYPD, and I would never pretend to, but all the cops that I got to speak to said this program sucked. This is something that Bloomberg put in there to make himself feel safer. This is what an out-of-touch rich Wall Street asshole does when he's afraid to walk around the street with normal people unless he has his personal army fucking with everybody. Forget about the fact that this fundamentally violates your Fourth Amendment rights. It doesn't work. It was ineffective. It didn't stop crime. This is what Michael Bloomberg pushed for because he was so afraid of other people that he needed the police to constantly be patting random people down. In 2011, at the program's peak, NYPD made 685,000 stops, and 88% of the people that they were stopped were innocent. They were neither arrested nor issued a summons. So nearly 9 out of every 10 people that was thrown against the wall as a result of this program were innocent people that they had absolutely no reason to believe were committing any crime. You can't just search people without a warrant for no good reason if you don't think they're doing anything wrong, and you cannot have that codified as policy. He is so afraid of the people walking around the street in New York City that he needed them to constantly be searched all the fucking time. Another example was the soda ban. There was a sugary drinks portion cap rule, a 16 fluid ounce cap on cup and a container size for sugary drinks at restaurants, theaters, and stadiums. This man wanted to control how much soda you drank. If you were going to drink more than 16 ounces of soda, he had a problem with that. I don't drink soda. I don't think it's good for you. I don't even think it tastes good, whatever. It's not my thing, but who the fuck am I to tell you that you can't drink soda? This man is obsessed with telling other people what to do. And somebody here needs to put their foot down and say, fucking no. Just like his stop and frisk bullshit, this was rejected by a court, and I hope his 3D printing crap will be as well. Another one, in Latch on New York City. This is a program that put infant formula under lock and sign out logs. So instead of just being able to get infant formula in a convenient way, an initiative under Michael Bloomberg asked New York City hospitals to keep infant formula under lock and key and to stop distributing the formula gift bags to new mothers. Under this program, formula was stored in secure rooms or locked boxes, requiring nurses to sign it out like medication if a mother needed it. This shamed and humiliated new mothers. Critics argued that the policy stigmatized and caused guilt for mothers who chose to bottle feed or physically unable to breastfeed. Locking formula away and requiring staff to track it like a regulated substance added unnecessary barriers and stress for new parents trying to feed their children during a vulnerable time. Bloomberg thinks that he knows how you should live. He has decided how you should live. He has decided what you should drink. He has decided whether or not you should be allowed to walk down the street without being bothered. He has decided whether or not you should or should not breastfeed your kid. Michael Bloomberg believes that he has control over your breasts if you are a woman who is giving birth. And if you have a health problem that does not allow you to be able to breastfeed like other mothers can, he doesn't give a fuck. He thinks it should still be more difficult. There should be more friction in the process of being able to provide nutrition to your child just to try and get you to conform to his sick, fucked up worldview where he controls everything. Let's look at the people that staff the organization, because that will continue to make the case that this is simply an extension of Michael Bloomberg's own desire for dictatorial control. The people that are running this org are not a bunch of grassroots activists that all came together and said, I would love to have spyware in my 3D printer. They're people that have all worked with or for Michael Bloomberg in the past in his political career. John Feinblatt is the president of Everytown Entities. Everytown's own release is that Feinblatt previously served as chief policy advisor to New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg and leads former Mayor Bloomberg's National Coalition on Gun Violence Prevention. The board is stacked with Bloomberg administration and Bloomberg LP alumni. The Action Fund chairperson, Howard Wolfson, runs Bloomberg Super PAC and leads education at Bloomberg Philanthropies. Other directors carry Bloomberg administration roles. Dennis Walcott, his school's chancellor and a deputy mayor, and Fatima Shama, his commissioner of immigrant affairs, both sit on the Everytown board. The books of the organization run through Geller & Company, the same firm that served as Bloomberg LP's CFO operation. Its founder was Bloomberg LP CFO and sat on its board. The Action Fund 990 names Geller & Company LLC as the firm that prepared its return. Geller & Company was Everytown's highest paid contractor in the year of 2024 at $4.5 million. So Everytown's return was provided by Bloomberg's financial firm, which he paid $4.5 million. Who pays for this staff sit and who keeps the books all tie back to Bloomberg. When the same operation turns its attention to 3D printers, that looks like Bloomberg's right hand moving on his own fear of 3D printers. This is not a grassroots groundswell. This is not millions of people deciding, I really wish my 3D printer had spyware on it that would restrict me from being able to print parts to my camera and a flashlight. It's a billionaire that is afraid of people drinking soda. A billionaire that is afraid to share the streets with other people unless the police are constantly harassing them. A man who wants to control what women do or do not do with their breasts in their spare time. You cannot let this man win. This is a man that needs to control everything. This is a man that is afraid to walk down the street if there's people who are a different color walking down it than him. This is a man that needs to tell you what you can do with your soda. He's afraid of what women are doing with their breasts in their spare time. Of course, this is going to be a man that also wants to control what you do with your 3D printer. And this is not a grassroots effort. Do not ever mistake what this piece of shit is doing as a grassroots effort. This is a man that has a fuck ton of money, and he is using his fuck ton of money to make it look like this is something that is popular. And he has the money to show up to every single one of these legislative hearings. He has money to hire lobbyists from now until the end of time to constantly badger these politicians. He has the money to come up with fake studies if he wanted to come up with a fake study, which is why this is a coordinated effort. And it needs you to actually start stepping up. You need to call your state senator. You need to call your state representative. You need to call your state assembly person and let them know why this is bullshit. And here's the thing that I would start with. This is mostly happening in blue states. To be clear, I'm not trying to say red states are better here. My state tried to push some shit for fucking age verification in app stores. We all got our clusterfucks in this country. My point is, this is mostly showing up in blue states. And on average, blue governments tend to be a little bit more sympathetic to the argument of, I don't feel like having a billionaire control everything. I don't want spyware in the entire manufacturing chain because a billionaire has a problem with what I do in my personal time that does not harm him. If Michael Bloomberg is afraid to walk down the street because there may be a brown person on it, you don't get to pull over and harass 90% of the fucking citizens that are completely innocent and not doing anything just so that you feel a little bit safer. You don't get to say that I'm not allowed to drink more than 16 ounces of soda. You're not my mommy. You're not my daddy. I'm a 37-year-old man. Fuck out of here with that shit. And you don't get to say what women do or do not do with their breasts. That is their decision, not yours. And above all, you don't get to say what happens to the manufacturing supply chain in the entire country. How about we not allow a multi-billionaire to spend all of his money to put spyware inside of every piece of manufacturing equipment in the United States, just to make him feel better? How about we don't do that? It's very obvious when you look through all the evidence that these organizations are run by all of his cronies. They're paying millions of dollars to his accounting firms. This is not grassroots. 34,000 small donors. Yeah, no membership dues, no income from other conferences, all contributions, gifts, and grants from a guy that admitted that he put $50 million into this. These people have over $50 to $80 million a year, and Bloomberg could spend 10 times that money from now until the day that he died and not even use up 1 or 2% of his wealth. The only way that freedom will be preserved is if people watching this video realize that this is a lot more than just 1 or 2 shitty lawmakers. This is a serial control freak that has a fuck ton of money to spend, and if you guys don't get up off your ass and do something about it, he's gonna win. Don't let him win. Call and email your legislator today. Show up to their office. Let them know that you don't want a billionaire to buy the manufacturing supply chain so that they can insert closed source spyware into it. Fuck that. If you don't want your 3D printers into the future to be run off of closed source software, where the state gets to control what you print, and the manufacturer gets to control whether or not you're able to even use it without paying them a subscription in the future if they feel like it, contact your legislator and let them know that you don't want one fucking butthurt billionaire to be able to control the entire manufacturing supply chain in the United States of America. That's it for today, and as always, I hope you learned something. And if you're watching this, Michael Bloomberg, fuck you. See you in the next video. Bye now.